Open for nominations for President Pro Tem for purposes of conducting tonight's meeting.
I would like to nominate George Pierce.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Pierce has been moved and seconded and has been duly nominated. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. All in favor of Trustee Pierce acting as President Pro Tem, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, without objection, Trustee Pierce, you are President Pro Tem.
So this is a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village Wilmette. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. As I said, this is a regular meeting of the Village Board of the Village of Wilmette. We will call the matters in the order which they appear on the printed agenda. There are copies of the agenda on the table by the door if you don't have one yet. You may want to have one so you can follow along and see when your matter will be called. If you plan to address us tonight, we ask that you please come up to the podium, please speak into the microphone, and tell us who you are and where you live so that as that may be relevant to the matter at hand. We ask that you speak clearly into the microphone so that we can hear you, and because everything you say and everything we say is recorded. And from those recordings, minutes of the meetings are prepared. These minutes are available here at Village Hall and at our website, wilmette.com. Also, our Village Board meetings are televised on Local Access Channel 6 and on the Internet. If you look up, you can see the cameras in the corners of the room. By televising our meetings, we make it easy for our neighbors in the community to follow the proceedings of the Village Board and to see the types of matters that come before us, the questions we ask, and the policies we create. You can find archived videos of Village Board and other local government meetings at wilmette.com. We'd like to personally thank all the residents of Wilmette who tune in regularly to Channel 6 and pay attention to the workings of their village government. Before each meeting, the Village Board members receive a packet of the agenda materials. These materials are also posted at wilmette.com on Friday before a meeting, so residents and other interested parties can review the materials that the board members receive. For tonight's meeting, the packet contains 270 pages. We've had an opportunity to review all the information in the agenda packet. If you plan to address us tonight, we ask that you tell us the most relevant points of the materials as to what you want us to focus on. Finally, we're a community of neighbors, and as such, we want our meetings to be civil and as courteous as possible. So, as a courtesy to those around you, please take this time to turn off your cell phones and other devices, and we've already called the roll. So, next item on our agenda is public comment. During public comment, we ask if there's a member of the audience who would like to address the board on a matter which is not on our agenda. Members of the audience may address the board on matters which are on the agenda later on when the particular matter is called. So is there any member of the audience who would like to address the board on an agenda, on a matter which is not on the agenda? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Would you like to come up and address us? Yes, I think so.
Good evening. My name is Ann Mason. I live at 211 Golf Terrace in Wilmette. I'm part of the Golf Terrace community, and I'm here representing them. It is not on the agenda, so I wanted to ask, because I'm sure you're all aware of the easement request to go through Canal Shores Golf Course for 426 feet to the property owned by Keefe Development. This is public land that is being used to create essentially a driveway, or as some people with more sense of humor than I call, the John Cullerton bypass. We live next to the golf course. The property that is being affected by this proposed road goes through the wetland that keeps our homes dry. We live a precarious existence every time it rains, every time there's spring melt. Our homes are already damp. And were it not for that wetland, we would be underwater. Most of us can lift a stone in our basements, and the water table is right there. Now, I'm not sure how much people know about sewer systems, but we also have a combined sewer system. It's not legal anymore, but it was built 100 years ago, which means that runoff and sewage go down the same pipes. So when there's flooding, not only do we get water in our basement, but if that flooding is too fast, we get sewage in our basements. And if anybody's ever dealt with that, it's icky. And it takes a lot of abatement. So far, we have spoken before the Metropolitan Water District twice. The matter was removed from the agenda once and deferred on November 1st. The next meeting is this Thursday, November 15th. And in spite of all the political shenanigans and the obvious deal-making, this proposal will most likely be approved by the Metropolitan Water District. The last time we were there, 30 people spoke on behalf of the residents who are most affected by this, including Mayor Haggerty from Evanston, the Fifth Ward Alderman from Evanston, the Sierra Club, the League of Women Voters, Open Lands, the Friends of the Chicago River, and numerous residents. Village of Wilmette was not there. When I spoke to Commissioner Walsh and told him of our objections, he told me he was terribly afraid of litigation, which is ironic because a lot of things have been litigated lately down there. And then he said, well, you must not have much faith in your village. And I had to say, I don't, because they have been silent. We have heard nothing. So I am asking the Village of Wilmette what your position is, if you have one, and if you are in favor of this, at least say it. If you're not, say it. But your residents, the people who are going to be affected, whose home values will probably diminish significantly, particularly the people who live along the course who will be abutted or surrounded on two sides by roads. They have their road, and they'll have a road behind them. This is not an alley. They can't put their garbage out there. They can't park there. They can't pull their cars in. It is someone else's road. And basically a private road under public maintenance. So home values will go down. Quality of life goes down when water comes in. Property values diminish. So we are asking the Village of Wilmette to please speak up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Ms. Mason, I can help you with a little bit of that. Okay, Mr. Stein here too. Okay, I'll lean into the microphone more too. Just so you're aware, the first iteration of the four-lot subdivision there was something the village, when I was the attorney, fought for 10 years and more than $500,000 $1990s to stop. But that was after the village board had to conduct its hearings. The issue right now is that, and we confer with our legal counsel, is that the board, this board, if the MWRD grants this, has to perform a quasi-judicial function. Afterwards, it has to conduct public hearings on it. And while I know individual board members certainly have feelings on this, the board collectively is also not trying to put itself in a position where it would lose a lawsuit by prejudging the case before it's heard. But I would like to assure you that we, the staff, has met repeatedly with the Park District, with the Canal Shores board members, with Evanston's aldermen, and we are providing them all the information and support that we can. And I think everything they've asked us for, in terms of documentation, background, evidence we've provided. So without placing the public officials in a difficult position here, we hear the neighbors, we understand, and we will be continuing to work with the Park District and the Canal Shores Board and the other folks who have needed us to help them get in a position to do what they need to do with the MWRD Board on Thursday, and hopefully it'll I'm perhaps being Pollyannish, but hopefully it'll go well.
So, one other thing is the reason why we are different than the city of Evanston is that this developer would not need an application before the city of Evanston to build a road from the southern portion of the lot going north. They will, no matter what, if they wish to subdivide their property, come before the Plan Commission here at the village and then eventually the village board, regardless of where that road is. So to Village Manager Frenger's point, and based upon my advice, is we will be serving as a quasi-judicial function. The last thing that we want to do is put out an opinion as to whether we support, without knowing all the facts. We have to go through a public hearing, and once we hear all the facts, then we will issue what would ultimately be a ruling. So it's not that we're putting our heads in the sand. We're monitoring it. We're providing Freedom of Information Act information as expedient as we possibly can. But we have our role in this, and unfortunately or fortunately, our role is not right now. Does that help?
That helps a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. And I have been here 32 years, so I know.
Well, you remember the last time we went through this then? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there any other comment from public for a matter that's not on the agenda? Okay, then we can move on to the consent agenda, which is item 3. Items which are routine business that are normally not debated by the board are placed on our consent agenda.
Excuse me, Trustee Pierce.
Oh.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask this young group of high schools, I don't know
Yeah.
if they know the policy. Did you want to speak on a topic?
Well, we go to Oakton, and we're like doing this project where we have to do a project on our board, the Wilmette board, and so we have.
Should I
I
have?
tell you what, why don't
Sorry.
you come up to
Why
the...
don't you come up to?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think they just
Okay.
didn't understand
Yeah,
the process.
Barbara needs to get, for the record, whoever's speaking.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I'm
why
sorry.
don't you give us your name and...
Hi, I'm Ellie Perlman. I live in Wilmette.
Right.
But basically, me and my friend, we are at Oakton right now, and we're doing a project on the board of Wilmette. And so we have a few questions, but they're not specifically about Wilmette. It's kind of more about the board, like public salary and stuff like that. And then we have some fun questions if you guys want to answer. But I don't know if you guys, I'm not sure if that's like a now thing or if a later thing, so.
Want to do it at new business?
Well, we can...
We can do it at new business.
Yeah, or else for salary information, everything, the assistant manager and I can help you after the meeting with whatever you need. We
Okay.
can show you where it's all online.
So then after the meeting, can we just talk to you guys?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, that's okay. No, good. The consent agenda, as I was explaining, all the items that start with number 3 on the agenda are consent agenda items, and that begins on page 1, starting with item 3.1, going to item 3.19. Items on our consent agenda are up for approval tonight, and they will not be discussed by the board. If a member of the audience wants one of those items discussed, you have the opportunity to do so. So is there anyone in the audience that would like us to discuss a consent agenda item? Okay. Are there any trustees who wish us to discuss any of the items on consent agenda? Okay. Then can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Trustee Wolf.
Aye.
Trustee Plunkett.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Kurzman.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Pierce.
Aye. So the consent agenda has been adopted. If you're here for an item that's on the consent agenda, it's been approved. So all of the items beginning with number 3 have been approved. While you're welcome to stay, I just want you to realize your matter has now been approved and you're free to leave. But as President Belinsky always says, if you leave early, please feel free to stop by one of our downtown restaurants. Now we'll move on to reports of officers. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Item 4.2, introduction of April Cesaretti. Is April here? Yes, great. April has been appointed to the Energy and Environmental Commission, and I wonder if you'd like to come up and introduce yourself. I know you have a strong background in environmental and health safety, and we'd love to hear about your background.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is April Cesaretti. I live at 935 Oakwood in Wilmette. I've lived here for almost 10 years. I have a master's in environmental management, and for the last 25 years, I've worked in the realm of environmental health and safety compliance for privately held companies. My current position right now is with a privately held chemical company located in downtown Chicago, and I was looking for a volunteer opportunity, saw the Environment and Energy Commission. My children are getting a little bit older, so I have some time to do this. The sustainability thing with the village came up, met with President Belinsky, and thankful to him and you trustees, and I look forward to serving the village in this capacity.
That's great. We really appreciate you volunteering to serve. Are there any questions or comments? Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see. Village manager, is there a report from the village manager?
No report, Mr. President.
Report from Corporation Counsel?
No report.
And there's no report from the Liquor Control Commissioner, so now we move on to standing committees. Land use, everything was on consent agenda. So the Finance Committee, I will read something once I find it regarding introducing the new ordinance. Here it is. So with respect to the Finance Committee, at the request of President Belinsky, on the agenda tonight is the introduction of ordinance number 2018-085, which, if approved, would result in the village fully opting into the Cook County ordinances regarding minimum wage and paid sick leave. President Belinsky has asked me to communicate that he has placed these items on the agenda because the overwhelming majority of Wilmette residents made it clear via the referenda questions on the November 6th ballot that employees working in Wilmette should be covered by these ordinances. As with all ordinances up for introduction, the village board will not debate or discuss the merits of the ordinance this evening. The item is not on the consent agenda tonight in order to maximize notice to the community. All interested persons will have the opportunity to comment publicly tonight or at our November 27th meeting when the ordinance will be debated and voted upon by the village board. If you're interested in speaking on this issue tonight, please keep in mind that we have a 3-minute time limit per speaker. I would ask that anyone planning to speak please line up at the podium at this time. Does anyone want to speak on the introduction of this ordinance? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Marcia Richards, and I live at 915 Elmwood Avenue in Wilmette. I'm a member of the Board of League of Women Voters of Wilmette, and tonight I will be speaking on behalf of the League. We are pleased to be back here tonight at the Village Board as the Village Board considers fully opting into the sick leave and minimum wage ordinances. At the highest levels of our national organization, the League of Women Voters supports raising the minimum wage and providing earned sick leave to employees under our meeting basic human needs position. 1 week ago, voters in Wilmette reaffirmed their message from the previous referenda and again demonstrated their overwhelming support for an increased minimum wage and earned sick leave for workers in our community. The Village Board has responded appropriately by expeditiously placing these ordinances back on their agenda for consideration and adoption. The League of Women Voters expects the Village Board at this time to fully support and adopt the Cook County minimum wage and sick leave ordinances without amendment or conditions. As always, thank you for your time and your service to the community.
Thank you.
Good evening, trustees and Acting President Pierce and President Belinsky in absentia. I'm John Marshall. I live at 822 Prairie Avenue. I want to thank the board for taking up this issue again. I know you all have devoted probably many dozens of hours to this issue, if not hundreds of hours to this issue, and it's greatly appreciated the time and thought and study that you have devoted to it. Also to thank the working group who did an incredibly thorough job earlier this year in studying the issue. Just some reminders from the working group study. I know you all looked at it back in the spring, but some of the highlights from their thorough research. We know that none of the commercial brokers interviewed by village staff thought that these ordinances would discourage tenants from moving to Wilmette. We know from the report and from subsequent news that Chicago, Evanston, Skokie, Winnetka, Glencoe, Kenilworth, our neighboring communities who already have these ordinances in place have not suffered economically as a result of them. We know that this experience is consistent with what the most thorough studies done by economists have shown, that when the minimum wage goes higher or when there is paid sick leave, that there is not any major negative effect on local economies. We also know that the higher minimum wage saves taxpayers money because workers don't need to rely on public assistance to support their families. And the research shows that the additional money they earn goes right back into local economies. We also know from the working group report that parents with paid sick days were more than 20% less likely to send a child with a contagious disease to school. And as flu season approaches, I know that keeping our children from getting sick and the rest of our families from getting sick is probably now at the front of our minds. And we know from the report that flu rates drop after employees are allowed to take paid sick leaves. So, as I think you all know by now, I support these ordinances, and I hope the Village Board will pass them 2 weeks from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience wish to comment on this ordinance that's being introduced? I know we have received correspondence as well from the Chamber and other individuals, which I know we'll be discussing when we debate this in 2 weeks. So I think we just introduce it and then move on.
Yes.
So that will conclude Finance. Administration Committee, Trustee Dodd.
All items listed on consent.
Municipal Services, Trustee Wolf.
All items covered on consent.
Public Safety, Trustee Kurzman.
No report.
Judiciary Committee, Trustee Plunkett.
All items covered on consent.
Okay. And then there are no reports of special committees. New business, are we going to talk further?
We'll talk about it.
Okay, so why don't, we're about to adjourn, and then we'll talk further with you regarding, your project at Oakton. Good. And I think that is it. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.